We know from media reports that young girls have been recruited by grooming gangs.
Overly descriptive, and I think verging on not being totally respectful of the victim at this point. So can you tone down the rhetoric slightly?
I'm afraid I'm simply reading facts.
No,
Chloe,
you're not. Making sure that you are keeping well away from inflaming any kind of discrimination or inciting of any kind of discrimination.
Who does she think she is in this clip? Talking to him like a 5-year-old. It shows just how ingrained this diversity religion is in Parliament. They all sound like members of a cult, as you'll hear. The way they try to gaslight this guy is sickening, and it's made worse in the way they do it, especially some of the women, trying to tell him that by even talking about these crimes, he is the one who is showing the victims no respect. This Conservative asked a question about the grooming gangs and made reference to some of the crimes committed against one victim. The chair immediately reprimanded him for daring to bring that up. According to her, that was not being respectful to the victims. Let's face it, she couldn't care less about the victims. What she really meant is he's not being respectful to the groomers. She inadvertently admitted that shortly after, when she said such descriptions may cause discrimination or incitement. In other words, talking about it is racist and may inflame community tensions. Of course, in her eyes, that is far more important than the victims. Hard luck if she doesn't like hearing about the horrors of the grooming gangs. All this was covered up, so now it needs discussing in public so everyone can see the level of evil depravity that was brushed under the carpet. After he'd finished his speech, this gaslighting extraordinaire piped up with, "I'm so disappointed by your approach. This is where we need to remember the victims in a way that is supportive." Again, just sickening to hear. The sheer level of manipulation is off the scale. My heart goes out to the victims. It must be unimaginable knowing these people are pretending to care while hiding their true aims, which is to brush it under the carpet. Well done to this guy for telling it how it is and not allowing the rest of the room to shame him into silence. Take a watch.
Talked about a 10-year action plan. People want, of course, rapid action. There have been recommendations made to the Welsh Government. I asked you two specific questions. You haven't now answered the second question, which was about what correspondence has taken place between the Welsh Government, Welsh police forces, Welsh local authorities and other stakeholders about the extent of these issues, because people need those assurances. Now, it's very clear to me that you're not able to provide those assurances today, and that, I'm afraid, is a national scandal. We know from media reports that young girls have been recruited by grooming gangs here in South Wales before being gang raped and then trafficked to Telford, Hereford and Blackpool. One victim has even said that she was strangled, she was threatened with a knife, and her home was threatened with being burnt down. She was then raped, I'm afraid to say, First Minister, 1,000 times. She didn't know the number of perpetrators because there were so many.
I need you to come to your question now. You are being overly descriptive and I think verging on not being totally respectful of the victim at this point. So can you tone down the rhetoric slightly?
I'm afraid I'm simply reading facts.
No, you're not.
No, you're not.
The use of language in this place needs to be making sure that you are keeping well away from inflaming any kind of discrimination or inciting of any kind of discrimination. You were doing very well, Darren Miller, with your first two questions in avoiding that. In your third one, you've become overly descriptive, and I need you to now reflect on that and just ask the question again, please.
I am not seeking to inflame anything.
Good. I'm glad you confirmed that. I'm glad you confirmed that. Now carry on with your question.
Yes. So we know that some of the things which have been described by victims have been absolutely sickening. We know that those things have taken place, young girls in Wales have taken place in terms of recruitment by grooming gangs in Wales.
Darren Miller, I ask you for your question.
So we need to know that these things, we don't have another Rotherham or Rochdale on our doorstep.
Darren
So can
Miller,
I ask
you're keeping to your script now, and you're not listening to my advice. If you do not ask your question in the next 10 seconds, I'm going to ask you to sit down. I did not expect to have to do this to you in your first few weeks as leader of the Welsh Conservative Party in here.
My question is this. Given that you oppose a UK-wide inquiry, given that we haven't had the assurances which I've sought from you today, and given the extent of public concern, will you now commission a Wales-wide inquiry into child sexual exploitation by grooming gangs here in Wales?
Darren, I've got to say I'm really disappointed in you. I wasn't expecting you to take on that kind of approach. This is something, I think, where we've got to remember the victims and remember them in a way that will be supportive. And I don't think what we've seen in the past few days has been a place where they would feel supported.